This is all just what I would normally do and something that I want to share with you guys so that you can experience your coffee more fully.
Have you ever read coffee tasting notes and wondered how they came up with them? Well, my name's Tristan. I'm a new content creator and an aspiring coffee professional, and I'm here to show you step by step how to taste the potential of your coffee.
I use these black bowls here. Just got them at Target. I think they were on clearance. I'm doing 3 coffees, so I got 3 laid out, and I have 2 kind of as a rinse and like a waste bowl right there. 3 different coffees here. I'm looking to compare them. I'm not looking to guess what coffee they are. I'm just looking to take in the flavor. And a cupping is a great way to do that. Now, different brewing methods are going to bring out different flavors in your coffee, but cupping is a great way to get a general idea of what is in that coffee based on how it's roasted or its freshness or lack thereof. Now, another thing is a lot of people will recommend online doing no less than 3 comparisons, because if you just taste a coffee, it's really hard to compare it to anything else. Like you can say, I absolutely taste blueberry, but then you get like a blueberry bomb and you're like, wait, that's blueberry. Same with roastiness, bitterness, anything like that. Baked coffee, it's great to compare it so that you have some backdrop to what you're tasting and what you're doing. So we're going to be doing 3 here today. Let me bring you guys over here and let's get started with this. The general setup, there are some things off screen that you're going to need: spoons, scale, kettle with some water. When you're brewing a cupping, if you will, sounds weird to kind of use that like that, might be wrong, but when you're brewing for a cupping, generally, I believe a 1-to-10 ratio is kind of the norm. So 1-to-10 is the goal. So what I'm going to do here is just grab 10 grams of coffee from each one of the coffees. Just start. Now, I'm going to look these over off camera for any sort of kind of Quaker beans. So if we go right here, I think I just saw one right here. So this actually has chaff on it. Now, focus here. It actually has chaff on it. But this is probably a Quaker. It's a lot smaller. It doesn't look like it's as roasted as the rest, so I'll replace that bean with another one. Now we're going to get into grinding our coffee. I have an Easy Presso grinder here, and I'm on, I don't know, I'll let you see kind of the length of the gap there. I'm going to clean all this out before we grind, but I'm about there. I think it's a 3. Actually, I need for it to be a 2, so we're going to go a little finer than that. Now, in prepping for this, there's no reason to get caught up over grind size when doing a cupping. Just go kind of a normal filter coffee, maybe just a tad bit finer, and start there. Don't go super fine, don't go super coarse, don't overthink it. All that matters really is just consistency and doing the same thing every time for every coffee. Okay, we've cleaned out the grinder here, nice and clean there on the bottom, nice and clean in there. And I'll clean this out after every grind that I do. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to grinding, I'm using a hand grinder, so retention is little to none, meaning there's not going to be any residual grounds left in the grind chamber. I also, just in case for myself, I have like a little air gun, and I also have a little brush to clean this out after each one of these. But if you are using an electric grinder, or especially a grinder, the ones that tend to be a little bit cheaper, they tend to have a lot more retained coffee. So keep that in mind. You might want to lay out a couple extra beans or so from each of the ones you're brewing in order to purge that old coffee out. On those machines, you don't want to just clean it, because then you have to put extra coffee in or to fill that space and then start filling you up. Otherwise, you might put in 10 grams and get out 8 because there's 2 grams still in the machine or in the grind chamber. I'm using a hand grinder for the sake of simplicity. That being said, let's get into grinding here. Okay, what's next, Tristan? How do we get into this? I want to taste this coffee. You have a 1-to-10 ratio, so each of these cups has 10 grams of coffee in it. That means it's going to be met with 100 grams of water. Nothing super important to note here, just be consistent. I'm gonna pour like fully laminar here for every single one. And I'm gonna start a timer as well. Now I'm gonna let these set for around 2 minutes. We're at 40 seconds here. If you look there, I'm gonna set that aside and let that be my timer. I'm waiting for that 2-minute mark. 2-minute mark, we'll take our next step, and that'll be breaking the crust. I'll break the first crust on screen. The rest I'll break off screen, because another thing you wanna do while you're breaking the crust is actually take a whiff of that initial aroma. Now I'm gonna break the first crust on camera for you, and then I'll do the rest under my NAS so I can take some notes. For breaking the crust, just grab some spoons. This is where we'll finally make use of these 2 waste bowls here. So you're just gonna gently push the surface back. I'm gonna do it 3 times, literally just for the sake of consistency. And this is just gonna knock those floating grounds down. Darker coffees tend to have more floating grounds. Lighter coffees tend to have less. So that's something just to keep in mind. Okay, it's time for the last setup before we get to tasting here. And that's gonna have to do with that little foam on top of each one of these that you see. What you're gonna do here is, if you've seen a cupping video before, maybe you've seen this, and take 2 spoons, ideally of same size, and you're gonna scrape it across the surface and just try to grab all of that foam off. If you wanna try the foam, you can absolutely do that. It is known for being a little more bitter. And then what I'm gonna do personally is rinse these spoons in the sink, refill this one with some fresh water. So okay, here we are. We're getting ready to finally taste this coffee. There's a couple things to keep in mind. One of these bowls will be used for rinsing off your spoon. I have 2 just in case one gets pretty dirty or if I get some grounds. Have a spoon with a decent surface area, doesn't need to be huge. A general tablespoon or even a soup spoon is nice. They make cupping spoons. There we go, just an normal tablespoon for me. I've not invested in a cupping spoon, though I might, because they're really not that expensive. All right, you can't see it off screen here, but I have my notes right next to me, and I'm ready to begin tasting these. Now, Lance talks about misophonia, mistophobia, I believe, which is the fear of slurping sounds. That's my assumption. Yeah, so this next part might be really disgusting sounding for some of you. I apologize. We slurp so that we can aerate the coffee and intensify it in our mouth with some oxygen, which is going to help our tongue read those experiences, those sensories. The aromas and the aeration will all help to do that. Again, that's a lot. If you just want to start by sipping it off the spoon, by all means, do that. But it's great to get out and just taste your coffee so you have a good idea of what to expect in the cup. Okay, that's dark, pretty bitter. Very drying aftertaste. Kind of have that chemically sense to it, which is unfortunate because I tend to go with EA so that I don't have to experience that. Yeah, very woody, very smoky. Tastes like it was over roasted, and that roaster was a very smoky place. Intense smoky bitterness. Not as much of a drying factor though, as was in that first one. There's a little bit of tobacco there still. Some people love, personally not my favorite. Stone fruit, floral. What have I done? Stone fruit. There's a sense of sweetness there at the end. It does have that drying factor, and it's pretty floral in the middle, kind of like the middle notes of it all. The initial hit of acidity was there, it was fruity, kind of moved into this floral sense that I really enjoyed. And it's important to go back and forth and also mix up the order that you taste these in order just to keep you tasting different parts of it, and also to continue tasting as it cools off, because that's going to change some of the flavor and really some of the acidity, I think, most often. So right there, I took that really bitter one and I kind of chased it in a way with this one. And so this really bitter, dark, deep flavor pulled out the high end of that very intensely. The acidity hit really hard because this lacked it so much. And so that fruit flavor was just abounding there. So now I'll do the opposite. Kind of tasted the deeper end more, but I actually felt like there was a little more acidity in this. Could be residual flavor from this as well. But this tasted better. This wasn't as bad as it's cooling off. These in general have like a very drying sense to them. Another thing you guys can do is take a sip of water in between these if you kind of want to cleanse. Now I'm going to take these two here and I'm going to kind of go back and forth as they cool off, trying to understand more of the deeper notes of these coffees, because I'm sure there are enjoyable things about these two, and I just want to taste it out. People talk a lot about cocoa flavors and dark, woody, nutty, smoky, and often those can be negative, but in espresso sometimes they're really great with milk. I won't go on and on about what I'm trying here. This video is probably long enough as it is. So there you have it, guys. That is my take on cupping so that you guys can taste your coffee better, understand more of what it is that you like in your coffees, and even get a general idea of the difference in flavor between coffees that might taste delicious in espresso and those that might taste delicious in filter. Go out and taste coffees. This is a pretty low waste way to do it, and you don't have any factors of brewing or anything like that. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe. I'm a new small channel growing here on YouTube. I do it with my free time just because I love videography, I love coffee, I love editing, and so much of what this is. So any support would be wonderful as we grow and learn more about coffee together.